All right.
We're here today at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in West Palm Beach at 7305 North Military Trail. And the young lady that we are interviewing is, what is your name, miss?
Bernice Charlotte Gilbertson.
Right.
Gilbertson.
Okay. And today's date is November 29th?
28th or 29th, yeah, I think you're right.
November 29th,
Right.
2013. It's the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I already said where we are. Her brother is here. What's your name?
Eric.
Eric. What's your last name, Eric?
Same.
Gilbertson.
Albert.
Gilbertson.
First name again?
Eric.
Eric Gilbertson. Her brother is here also visiting Bernice in the hospital. And let's see. My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the executive director of the Children's Coalition Incorporated. And here in a partnership with the Veterans Affairs Medical Center, performing the interviews. And Bernice, what branch of the service were you in?
I was in the Women's Army Corps.
Okay, that'll work. And what was your rank when you separated?
T5.
Where did you serve?
Mason General Hospital in Brentwood, Long Island.
Okay, good. And what were those service dates again? You remember? 1944
to 46.
Right, to 1946. Right, exactly. Were you drafted or enlisted?
I enlisted
Okay, where were you living at the time?
in
Boston.
Rosendale.
Rosendale or Rosedale?
Roslindale.
Roslindale.
Yeah.
All right.
Suburb of Boston.
Keep quiet, Eric, please.
And what state was that in?
Pardon?
What state was that in?
That's a suburb of Boston.
In Boston. Okay. Okay. And why did you join?
Because they needed my skills, and I was at the time working for Professor Harris at Harvard doing clinical testing, but I did psychiatric social work.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed people in my field, so I thought I would join because I could be helpful. And so after basic training, they assigned me to this hospital which did diagnosis disposition. And soldiers from both theaters of war came to our place we had to work up a case study on them and then decide whether they go back to duty or out of the service or DD. And that was our clinical team, psychiatrist, a social worker, a nurse, doctor, psychiatrist. So.
Okay. Okay. Why did you pick that branch of the service?
Well, because they had the program that I could be helpful in. The Navy didn't adopt it till the next year, and I thought the uniform was for the Navy was more attractive for women than the Army one. Because in those days they sort of based the uniform on the men, and so it looked like a box. But that wasn't the reason I joined, how I was going to look. So they just needed my skills, so I was happy to do that.
Okay. All right. Do you recall your first days in service?
Well, I was sent to. Yes, I did basic training in Georgia at Fort Oglethorpe. It's the oldest Army base in this country.
Where was that at?
Georgia.
Oh, okay. All right, and how long were you in basic training?
Well, the usual amount, I don't remember now.
Don't worry about it. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, and tell me about basic training. What was it like?
Oh, it's fine.
You remember your instructors?
No.
Okay. But you got through. I guess it was a lot of calisthenics, or
A lot of different things. The most astonishing thing was the food. I'd never eaten food like that, so I gained weight, which
oh, was it good food?
well, it was more starchy than I was used to.
Okay,
So I just gained weight, and it was very hard to get rid of it later to eat too.
I hear you.
But aside from that, we did all the things that you do in basic training, learning all the rudiments of what camping, all the things that you have to do.
Right.
And we had one liberty, I remember that more than anything, and that was we went to Lookout Mountain
Right.
in Georgia. So that was my one liberty. Then I was assigned to Long Island, so because I had said I wanted to be as close to home as possible. So that's where I was assigned,
Okay.
which was it was a really interesting assignment that I had. So,
What were you doing before you went in the service?
well, I was doing clinical testing, and I worked at the YMCA. I worked for Professor Harris at Harvard. It was mainly clinical. We were doing testing of people. Well, there were whole lots of programs. One was they would test a whole factory, for example, and if people were wrongly placed, they could now, due to the profile, be able to instead of firing them, they could reorganize. They could put them in a different department. It was a whole big program.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Okay, and you're and this was okay. This was during World War II.
Yes.
All right. So I think we figured out what your job assignment was. It was some kind of medical testing.
No, I was psychiatric social worker.
Oh.
So I took care of. I worked with the Red Cross to get information about these men, and I presented that at the team. We had a clinical team, and that was my job. I had about 80 men in my ward, and we had to work through that as fast as we could because a lot of people coming back.
Right. From war.
From Europe.
Well, people who didn't fit in, they were sending us the people who weren't functioning well.
Oh.
It was a mental patient. They were mental patients. We didn't call them that, of course, but they were not being able to do their job, and so they were sent to us to evaluate. And then, if we figured out what was wrong, we could send them back to service or out, or DD if they were just
Developmentally disabled.
Well, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I guess you saw. Did you ever have a service-related injury while you were in the service?
No.
Okay, but you saw people that did have a lot of.
Oh, sure.
So, how many? Hundreds, thousands?
I don't know, but
Okay.
most of these mental patients were not too disabled physically.
Okay.
They just weren't functioning mentally, that's all.
Oh, all right. Okay. Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences.
During the service?
Yes.
Well, what I did in the evenings, I ran a craft shop for the servicemen. And also then on Sundays I go into New York City and I wrote a column in the Post newspaper about New York this weekend. And that's to let the servicemen know if they had liberty where they could go and stay cheaply overnight, and interesting things that were happening in New York that they might not know about. And I enjoyed that very much. That was probably my most interesting experience was getting to know New York City. I met, because I was thinking of men.
Yeah.
I sort of looked over the city that way, like what men might like to do and where they liked. So so I went to more men's sports than I would have
Okay.
ordinarily. But I think that I enjoyed that job very much.
What was favorite one? All right.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So the next thing is. Okay. Oh, did you receive or were you awarded any medals or citations?
No.
Excuse me.
I got some things, I don't know what,
Sit
but
down here. Talk to you in a minute.
Oh, yeah, wait, I'll go on for a minute.
I can edit, darling. Don't worry about it.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I forgot what you asked me. You asked me.
Medals. Good conduct.
Oh, I got good conduct, of course. I got good conduct. I never thought too much about them. They were the medals that were given to people who were serving. You know, they award you. I think good conduct probably. I had good conduct, so. But the thing is, I weren't outstanding things. It wasn't as though I did anything special. I just did my job and was very busy.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Let me see. How did you stay in touch with your family?
By mail.
Okay. How far away were you? You were on Long Island.
Yeah.
So where was your family at?
My father at that time had a parish in Medford, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. So how often did you go home and visit?
Oh, I didn't go. I called them.
Okay, on a regular basis.
Yeah. Oh, sure, but I went into New York City. I had a very busy week. I didn't have any time off because
Can you move your chair just a little bit?
transferred.
Right.
Well, see, my father was a minister. My mother was a churchwoman. They were very busy. So, and I didn't go home at all because I had New York City, and I was investigating that, and I was enjoying that, and I wasn't that far away. You know, it's not as though. I mean, I called them, of course, but I didn't. I called them. I've traveled a lot in my life. I never sort of. I keep in touch with my parents. I did, you know, when they were alive. But I didn't. But I didn't have. I was the oldest, and I was a girl. My father wanted boys, so they didn't mind what I did. You know, when I joined the army, that was okay with them. They didn't think about it.
What was the food like?
Well, it was. I thought it's for combat soldiers. It's not for people who do civilian jobs.
Right.
You know, so it was too. I gained too much weight. That was the only thing I didn't like about my time in the service because there was nothing that I was used to eating. I mean, I ate more fruits and salad and that sort of thing. And of course, I enjoyed the food, but I didn't realize how dangerous it was because I gained weight. And then it was very hard to lose it.
Hold on. Supplies. Did you have all the supplies that you needed?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
That's
I'm
good.
sorry.
Did you ever feel pressure or stress?
No, it was a tough job, but you know, you had your perimeter you knew what you had to do, and I worked with the Red Cross a lot, and they're very cooperative. You know, you have to get histories of these men, and they did their best to help us out. And I found I thought we did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, I thought we did a good job, and it was well, it's a lot of men, 80 men, and then you get rid of those, you get some more.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 wards actually of 80 men each, but you know, you get to them when you can. But
Right. So it's actually 160.
yeah, well, they didn't have too many. See, when I got in, there weren't that many social workers or psychiatrists, psychiatric social workers, but before, when I was going to college, I worked in Institute of Living in Connecticut at Hartford, and they dealt with drug addicts. Well, these are all rich people, drug addicts, alcoholics, all kinds of things, illnesses, and I could follow a case each one's, from their entrance till they were discharged, and you get to know a lot of things. So I had a lot of background in certain kinds of illnesses, in mental illnesses, and so it was helpful when I got into service because all of these people are young and they are in fairly good physical condition, but they're mentally broken down. And a lot of it had to do with low IQ, I think.
Right.
Because an intelligent person can adjust to most anything. But if the mentality is not too high, then they can't make easy adjustments to anything.
Right.
And they break down because they can't function.
Right.
They don't have the idea that there are two ways to do anything. So that's what I found basically about the people we got. A lot of them didn't have the intelligence to cope with the situation.
Right.
But I mean, I'm sure they tried, but they just didn't have the ability.
Okay. Okay. What did people do, your peers that you work with? How did you all entertain yourselves?
Well, everyone had their own way. I didn't relate to everyone that much. I was very busy with my work, and then I ran a craft shop in the evening. So for service people that were working in the hospital, teaching them how to do leather craft, all the little things I know how to do. And then I was away on my on the weekend because I left to go into New York for my day off, and I would cover New York, go to the theater, jazz. I love jazz, so I'd go everywhere. And then I'd write my column on my way back in the train to Brentwood, and then submit that on Monday, and then go back to my real job.
Right.
So, and in the evening, of course, I had this other job that I just made up because I didn't date. I hadn't started dating or anything yet. I mean, I was used to doing a lot of church work, so that was my mentality.
Gotcha. Okay.
Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Campfire Girls. I did all those things when I was young, being in charge of things like that.
Besides the places you've already mentioned, where else did you travel while you were in the service?
I didn't.
Okay. All right.
I after I got out of the service, of course, I changed my life completely, and I decided to become a painter, which is what I wanted to do to begin with, but I didn't know I had any options when I was younger. So then I changed my life, and I went to Paris and studied there for a couple of years with Bernard Léger, and then I went to the Art Students League and Pratt Graphics, and I lived in New York City from then on. But then when I made any money, I traveled. And one year I made enough money, so I went around the world for a year, and I went everywhere you can think of. And then I revisited after that. But since then I've gone up to Tibet. I spent some time in Tibet. I met the Dalai Lama's brother and his wife, and they invited me up there. And then, of course, the Chinese came, so couldn't go. But I did go the next year on another kind of trip with some Harvard students. And so I was able to see everything. And for a while, I used to go up to Nepal every year, Kathmandu, and then I did a lot of trekking. And
go ahead.
Well, I spent a lot of time in India. I went everywhere you could possibly go, and I had some lovely experiences like that because. Well, India is a vast place, but it has extraordinary places you can visit. Amazing. So I Oh, so that's, I wanted to see everything because I was now a painter. And that's what, as you'll see in my website, you'll get all the background about that, so I don't have to go into it all that much. But
What is your website address? Do you know?
it's Charlotte-Gilbertson.com, World Wide Web.
It's Charlotte.
Yeah, CHARLOTTE hyphen Gilbertson.com.
Gilbertson.com.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's
Okay.
on World Wide Web.
Uh-huh.
But it has my whole history, really.
Okay. Okay. So the next thing is, what else do you want to tell us about traveling? Yeah, that's one of the questions anyway. Well, let's just go back for 1 second and we'll go forward. What did you think of officers and your fellow peers, fellow soldiers?
I thought they were good.
Okay, cool. All right, so
I have no difficulty with relating to people. When you're a minister's daughter, you get used to all kinds of people. You know, it's part of my father's job, but also since I was his daughter, it was part of my job too.
okay,
And I enjoy people in this impersonal way. You know, I make a few friends, but not so many. So I'm not interested in I'm not interested in buddies or things like that. I like to spend a lot of time by myself. So in the Army, of course, you don't have much time to be by yourself, but I still had so much to do. You're writing up case histories, you're contacting people, you're doing all kinds of things, but you're not really. I wasn't much with the social life because I didn't know much about it. I had, when your father's in ministry, you don't get much social life. All the mothers are afraid you're going to steal some boy that's in the parish. But I didn't even think about it. So, but I know there was a lot of, I understood it somewhat.
okay, all right. Okay. Where were you when your service ended? You were still in the same
I was
place,
still
right?
in Long Island. Now, see, that job kept going,
Okay, yeah. After you were gone, it kept going.
I think then there were no more servicemen returning. The job wasn't essential anymore.
Were you able to use the GI Bill for your education after you separated?
I did, yeah.
Okay. And where did you say you went to school?
I studied with Leger in Paris, and I went to Art Students League and Pratt Graphics.
Okay. Where is that? Where?
Pratt Graphics in New York City.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I went to the Boston Conservatory of Music as well.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Did you make any close friends while you were in the service?
No.
Okay.
Well, I made maybe one, but when people get married, they get busy with what they're doing. And
Right.
I kept in touch maybe a year or two, but their lives were so different from mine. I
Right.
didn't, I would, if they kept in touch, I would have, but family people get very busy.
Okay.
And I didn't think about it that much because I was very busy.
Right. So you found, obviously it sounds like you found India, Nepal, to be one of the most fascinating places you traveled to.
No.
No. Where else? did
Every
you go?
place. Well, I went to Burma. I went to what is it called now? I went up the Irrawaddy River to let's see that, and where is that? Not. I don't know. Isn't that strange? It's well, they're not very friendly toward us now, but it's a very interesting country. And I can't. It's not very good. I'm trying to think of. Well, I always know these things. You'll read it in my resume anyway, where I went, because I
Okay.
went to a lot of places. But this place, no, they changed their name. They call it Miramar or something now. I don't know. That
Where is that? What country?
well, that's what I'm saying. It's near Thailand actually.
Ah,
Not so far from Thailand, because I got hepatitis there, and I didn't know what it was. I was losing a lot. I was about 90 pounds. I was thinking, oh, I'm getting so slender. Well, so I found out, and I went to a talk, and
you went where?
I went to Bangkok, and I went to 7-Day Adventist Hospital, and they had no hot water there. They had very Spartan food, but it was very good. And in a month I was fine, and then I continued my trip to India. So, because that's where I was going next anyway, and they said go back. So I went to Thailand because there was a hospital there.
Right.
So aside from that, I've never really been sick, and so I spent couple months in India, and then I went on. I kept going, you know.
Right.
I love traveling, and I love, but every country I went to had interesting things. So it's not that, but it's different. Every country is different too, so you have to sit around and figure it out. But I enjoyed that very much.
Okay. Okay. So, I guess from the time you got out of the service until right up to this moment, you've been an artist.
Yes, I'm still a painter.
You're still a painter, exactly.
Yeah.
So tell me about the influence that the military had on your life, the way that you
Well, it changed my life because it enabled me to get the education I wanted. Not, you know, I was now thinking for myself. Going into service, it changed my life because I was no longer bound by a certain Christian area. I met a lot of different kinds of people with lots of different thoughts, and it gave me a broader insight into everything in life. And I enjoyed everyone I met. They had interesting stories to tell, and didn't think the way I did at all, so it was fascinating. And my Army experience was the best thing because it allowed me to think for myself. Before that, I was just following the pattern that my parents set me. Once I got in the Army, I had to think for myself about things. What did I want to do? I had to determine things and make it work. And I was on my own in a way. And I could fit it all in, and I could do good things too, but it enabled me to start thinking about what do I want, which I hadn't thought of before. And I really, my Army experience was wonderful. I worked very, very hard, but I always had worked hard, so I never knew the difference. And the people I worked with were very intelligent and very good at what they did, and I think I was too. But we had a lot of respect for each other. But I was used to being alone, and you have to realize a minister's daughter, no one invites them home. You know, parents don't want you to report to your father. They think you're going to, you know. I mean, so you're isolated in a way. So I was used to that, and in the Army, you know, a lot of people around, but I didn't relate to all of them. Of course, I enjoyed some, and you know, but I was used to a lot of people, so it was an interesting experience because they were very different from the people I'd known before.
Right.
But interesting, you know. But I didn't have a need to bond with anybody. You know, I was used to being on my own.
Right.
So I didn't change that. And most of the things I did, because I wrote for the Post newspaper, I had this craft shop at night, and then all day long I was doing my case studies and all that. So I was isolated more or less. I was interviewing people, or I was helping people, and that was it. When I got out, then I had the GI Bill, well, I thought, now what am I going to do? Because in the beginning, I thought I'll get some more graduate degrees in my field. But by that time, I surmised that my interests were very different from the social worker influence of my parents, and so I changed my life, and never looked back. It was the best thing because the Army really helped me to find myself as a person, and to figure out things by myself without any real, it was an influence, but it allowed me to broaden my own idea of myself, and so it was memorable because I don't think if I hadn't gone in the Army that I would have changed my life particularly. Because I would have been at home and I would have been doing the things that my parents did and so on. And I wouldn't have, I'm adventurous, but I don't think I would have thought I could do it, And I was planning to do some more graduate work anyway, but now I've changed it to really doing what I was interested in. And I really, thanks to the Army, I think I was able to have a very big life, which I wouldn't have had.
Right.
And so to me it was a great experience because I saw a lot of things I wouldn't have seen, and I heard a lot of words I wouldn't have heard either. but it was fascinating to me, and I grew a lot in terms of my understanding of things I thought I already knew.
Right.
So I think it was a great experience, and it changed my life. I will say that.
I see.
And until a car hit me when I was 83, and it took my arm and my legs, and I was just walking across the street 11:30 in the morning. This man stole a car, was joyriding, and he hit me. And it took me 4 years to recover from all that. And before that, I'd never been sick. So it was quite traumatic. I also lost my teeth. I broke his windshield. But it wasn't his car anyway. And of course, they never said anything to me, sorry or anything. He had no insurance, he had no license, he had no, So it was pretty traumatic, because the little money I had, I was planning more trips, the way you do. So I had to use it all up. And then when they kicked me out, when I had no more money, then I thought, well, I'm a veteran, maybe, because I thought the wars, I didn't want to, and so then my brother inquired for me, and they took me in, and then the person in the therapy there, I hadn't been able to get out of bed, so he encouraged me to try to walk, and so I can walk a little bit now. I can't walk a long distance or anything, but I can walk and I can do things which, without the veterans, they don't look at you like they look at you as though you're going to be able to do it. They have a positive attitude toward illness. They expect you to get up and go, So it helps you to try, because at least they expect you to try.
Right.
And whereas in a lot of civilian hospitals, they just let you die if you want to, They don't expect much of anything. So I think I was very lucky at the last phase of my illness, this accident that I had that attitude, because it really helped me a lot.
Okay.
And they said, stay another 8 months, you'll get better. And I said, in 8 months I might not be alive. I'm so old. So, but anyway, I came back because there was a little spot on my throat. And we discovered it was cancer, so they cut it all out.
Okay.
And I'm in good shape now, I think. I'm going to get well, and I'm going to go home. I hope.
A couple more.
Okay.
Well, I mean, basically, I mean, just thinking back. First of all, if you could, because I'm just really going to close out. I have one more question for you, actually, and close this out. And thank you for your service to the country. But I'm really more curious about, you said you traveled around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we did India. I know you did some Asia. You were in Europe, obviously. Where else did you go?
Well, first I went up to Alaska. See, I traveled. Well, you'll see that in my resume. I went up to Alaska to follow the trail of 98ers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. Then from Alaska, I went to Alaska. Then I went to Japan. I spent a couple months there.
Mm-hmm.
Then I spent another couple months. I really liked Japan. And I went to Hong Kong. I went from Hong Kong. Let's see. Every country, I covered them all. I went to China. I went to China at another time because that wasn't the right time then. Go to China. Hong Kong was okay.
Uh-huh.
But then I went along. I went to every Asian country you could go to, and of course I went up to Kathmandu, and Nepal, and so on. And I went all over India to all the interesting places you can go. And I hired a car and a driver, and I went everywhere because you can get there easier by car because a lot of the transport is difficult. So I saw all the things I wanted to see. Jaipur, well, I went everywhere. Mm-hmm. And then I went on to, let's see, from...
What about Europe and South America?
Oh, yeah. But, you know, when I was in Paris, I didn't go to too many countries then because I was busy as a student.
Right.
But, no, I've spent time in England, months. I've spent more time in France again. Mm-hmm. I go to Cannes, too, because I like the Côte d'Azur. But then I went to every European country, okay. Germany and Italy.
Spain.
Oh yeah, I spent a lot of time in Italy and Spain and let's see, Greece. Well, I covered every country in Europe. I went to Norway and Sweden and Finland, and I went to the North Cape and. Well, there are very few countries. I've been everywhere, really.
Right. Okay. All right. Last but not least, do you feel like there's anything that we haven't covered that you might wanted to comment on?
I'm not thinking on my highest level right now.
Which is okay.
So I don't know, but no. What I feel that I like to say is that I never thought when I joined the Army to be helpful, that it was going to help me so much. But the end result is that it changed my life in an absolutely positive, good way. Mm-hmm. And I really am so glad that I decided to serve when the call came for the kind of things I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad I decided to do it. I didn't tell my parents until after I joined. Mm-hmm. Then I told them. They were rather surprised, but they didn't. This brother joined. My next brother was in the Navy, and my youngest brother was too young. Yeah, but anyway, this is an amazing country, and I think the way the service is run. Uh-huh. I mean, there are always little things. Everyone in the service likes to complain. It's part of their diet, but I don't have anything to complain about. I felt it was really it was a wonderful experience, and it was the best one because it opened my eyes to all the possibilities in life that you could avail yourself of. And having the GI Bill allowed me to pursue the areas I was interested in a way that I couldn't have done otherwise. because it just enabled me to change my life completely the most positive way, and I never looked back. Except I will just say I never expected anything out of joining the service and doing a job, but what I found out was that it opened up my eyes to so much that then I had a different slant on things, and I was able to enlarge my life in a very definite ways. Very fortunate for me. So it changed my life. There's no doubt, but I think in a very positive way. And I never minded, the discipline and that sort of thing. I was always disciplined anyway, so it never really affected me. The only thing that affected me was I wasn't used to the food, and that was too rich, and it made me fat, and I didn't like that. But aside from that, I had no complaints.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the time you've given me to
it's a pleasure.
share your experience.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.